I would like these are possibly the comfiest chairs I've ever actually sat in.
Aren't they amazing?
I would have these in the house.
So, I mean, we haven't even got into the episode, but we actually found these on Facebook Marketplace. And it was by complete chance. I'd been trawling.
I'd had people going to the auction. Our June was going to the auction looking for chairs of all. We'd gone through nursing chairs.
Everything.
Things that needed reupholstering. We were going to dye some at one point.
Hold on, because there was some
with frills.
Me, and yeah, they had kind of, let's say, tasseling, which we could work with.
We could overlook the tasseling.
And then we found these, and I went in the pickup.
Was he moving or something? Because why would you get rid of them?
He was moving house, and well, he was an absolutely lovely chat. Had a brilliant chat to him, and came back with these. And as you say, I would actually have them in my house,
and they are far more comfortable than they should be. Like I could just
envisage me,
here. Like literally just like slobbing.
They're so comfy.
Yeah, they are good.
They're perfect. Right, well, welcome back to episode 2. I'm Rebecca Wilson, and
I'm Charlotte Ashley.
Hopefully you know that by now, to be fair. The clue is very much in the name.
I'm a 5th generation, a sheep farmer, not beef farmer. I'm not. I'm a no generation. Am I a first generation?
First generation.
Well, I hate this first generation, second generation thing's really interesting because I was speaking to Roy about it. Roy's dad, right? So excuse me if Big Roy doesn't want this saying, but I'm going to say it anyway. So Roy's dad grew up in Cumbria, and they had, let's say, very little. As in, he said the mice were starving. Like that's how he had an earth toilet. It was incredible, like a proper outside dunny.
Yes.
Anyway, aside from that, he used to, when he was younger, bale the verges of the A66 and sell them. But you couldn't do that now because of that bloody litter in it.
You couldn't. But actually, that was the.
So does that make him a farmer? Are we second generation? And I've been lying and telling everyone I'm first generation.
Yeah, I'm a new entrant to farming. Oh, are you, Charlotte?
Are you really? Because I know your granddad.
Yeah, there was a tractor involved. So.
There was, and my dad used to work on a chicken farm.
Did it?
Yeah, he did in Preston.
Gosh,
I know.
That would have been different back in the day.
I can't imagine him working on a farm, to be fair.
To be fair, you've actually made a brilliant little
Sorry,
segue.
This is absolutely... We've not done the introduction. We've not got into any of our topics that we want to talk about.
But you've made a brilliant segue.
Okay.
Your dad used to work in poultry. About today is chlorinated chicken.
Oh, God, I forgot that. Well done, you.
I'll bring us back in.
Yeah, well done, well done.
Bring it back in.
Yeah, well done.
Chlorinated chicken, and we have also recently just been to the National Women in Agriculture Awards. So we're also going to be talking about
how much Charlotte hates women in agriculture.
Yeah.
No, I'm joking, I don't. I love women.
We want to talk about, I guess, the movement and... Well, we've actually had loads and loads of contact from our listeners this week, which is quite overwhelming. So
no, honestly, amazing. Absolutely overwhelmed with the amount of people that have sent in voice notes. And we're not doing the influency thing where we say, oh, thanks so much for getting in touch. No, seriously, we'll play them. They're so good. They're proper interaction from real working people that is valid and adds to the conversation. So really happy about that.
This is it. Adding to the conversation is exactly it, because if we didn't incorporate any other perspectives, now we've said before, this isn't guest based. We're not going to have somebody in the studio every week, but to get those other perspectives, I think it informs us. It gives you a bit more to listen to. So let's get into it. So Charlotte, the first conversation we're going to be having is around chlorinated chicken. Now, I'm sure many of our listeners are the same as us in that this has been hitting the headlines massively. And I know that trade deals are, well, they're very talked about in general at the moment, UK-US trade deals in particular. It'd be brilliant to get into the politics of all of this, but we simply do not have time in the episode.
And it's a future episode, that, isn't it, in itself?
This is it, and I think the details are still very unclear, but I think one thing that I guess is paramount to us as farmers is that it does feel like we're kind of shouldering the burden of some of the tariff, the restrictions on tariffs, etc. It feels like we're now having to pick up the slack, and if you go into the details, the things around the reciprocal beef trade and the things around bioethanol, it could mean that those two sectors of farming are going to be disproportionately affected, so beef and cereals. But as I said, we just simply do not have time to get into the politics. No. And, well, if you guys want to hear about politics, I'm sure we could get into it at some point. But not for this episode. Chlorinated chicken. We've done quite a bit of research, and I think it's kind of interesting that the words chlorinated chicken are the things which hit the headlines, and not any nod to production standards.
Well, I think it's social media in general, isn't it? It's a clickbait headline. Chlorinated chicken, it's terrible, it's bad. The chlorine in the chicken isn't actually an issue. It isn't an issue. It's safe. It is safe. But and it's interesting, if we ask people in America, they don't see a problem with it whatsoever. But it's masking, I wouldn't say terrible, animal husbandry, but maybe not quite up to the standard that we are. So it sets that unlevel playing field yet again for farming.
Interestingly, we did a yay or a nay poll on our Instagram about chlorinated chicken, and overwhelmingly it was a nay from our followers. Now, we don't have every demographic and, every kind of bit of information about who's answered it. But actually, I think for that sense to be so resounding, it is very, very interesting. Do you think it's because we have farming followers?
I think we do have an overwhelmingly large farming following. I would like to know what proportion of those people have any kind of in-depth knowledge about it, or is it just the general feeling towards? I don't know. It's like forming your own opinions off fact, or are you being led by the media?
Well, again, we could get into the media narrative and we'd be here all day, because I think it has been misleading. I think is it scaremongering?
I think it is scaremongering. And I do agree with the general feeling behind it. I do agree with that. And I do think it is a bad deal in a trade deal sense. It's a bad deal for farming in general. But whether or not the headlines, I don't know, portrayed it properly, it's just the words, the chlorinated chicken, that worry me slightly.
Yes.
Because obviously, Nigel Farage, for instance, had said it's the same as what's on your salad. Well, actually, it technically is the same as what's on your salad. It's in a different concentration, but your salad is meant to be eaten straight out of the bag. So it's basically killing all the bugs, and it's a washing process, and it isn't going into it. Yeah.
It's not to mask the production standards.
No,
of
it is.
chicken.
That's exactly the point, isn't it? It's masking poor hygiene standards, I think.
And I actually feel when we step out here, and obviously we're at Charlotte's today, and we've been around the cows this morning. It's immaculate in that cow shed, apart from the fact that a cow is literally just pooping right in front of you. But
okay, if you want to say it's immaculate, I'm for
well,
it.
it is. I mean, there's a robotic scraper. It keeps all the poo and wee. Probably shouldn't say any other stronger words for it. But it keeps that at bay. There's clean cubicles for cows to kind of stand in if they want, lay in. Yeah. And I think for us on our farm at home, no cattle, but those standards that we not even necessarily, it's not all regulation, is it? We want our animals to be in as kind of perfect conditions as in terms of cleanliness and hygiene that we can. And I think for me personally, it does feel like a kick in the teeth that meat produced to lower standards could flood into the country.
So I'm just reading here, and according to the US National Chicken Council, which I didn't know existed until 5 seconds ago, only 10% of processing facilities actually use a chlorine rinse. So I don't think it's necessarily about the chlorine. I think the reason we're also outraged about it is because of the poor deal that farmers are getting yet again.
And I think it's interesting to follow on from that. James Hansen, he's an LBC presenter, but he said, I have never understood the scaremongering that surrounds chlorinated chicken. Are we making a mountain out of a molehill? Is it one of those things which is going to come into the country? And as British farmers, we are just going to have to deal with it.
Do you know what? Don't quote me on the statistics, but it's something along these percentages. I think it was chlorinated chicken, it goes down to a 2% chance of having salmonella. And yet European, and obviously our chicken as well, is a 12 to 13% chance. So is their chicken actually safer than our chicken?
Can you imagine? I think we're going to get
But then
slated
again,
for
this
saying
is
that,
the point.
Charlotte.
If you actually cook your chicken properly.
Yes.
Like, who's not cooking chicken properly?
Well, have you seen those Rate My Plates on like Facebook and stuff? No. I don't know whether it's a joke, but people send in something they've cooked, and it's like delicious roast chicken, and it's this chicken which has obviously been put in the
Anemic,
oven for
disgusting
about
thing.
4 seconds, and it's basically still pink on the outside.
Oh no.
And so I don't know whether it's a joke or whether this is people who actually cook like this, but I do think probably we could. I mean, I certainly could get better at cooking, but perhaps is the knowledge there around how we cook things. And
We once did an HDB thing, didn't we, at Darlington Auction, and that was surrounding cooking and using produce to the best of your ability. That was really interesting,
yes.
I think.
Yeah,
because I can't cook. I'm useless. Meat and 2 veg is my
I'm always
speciality.
fed well when I come here, Charlotte.
No, but you're fed well with traditional meat and 2 veg.
Yes.
As in, we're very homely in the sense that we rear and kill. Well, we don't do the killing, but we rear and butcher our own meat, and our freezer is stocked with animals from this farm. But actually, we're not exotic cookers at all. There's no processed food at all, though. None. There's no ready meals. There's no. What's in the freezer that's processed? Waffles.
I think we should do an episode on processed food.
Oh my god! Do you know you can? Sorry. Do you know you can toast waffles in the toaster?
Right. I'm going to say something which you're gonna. I've never had a waffle. A waffle's those
Things
square
with holes in.
things.
Yes.
Square things. I've never had a waffle.
Do you want one in a toaster?
Oh my gosh, yes. What do you put on it? Is that a stupid question?
Oh, no, you just eat it. They're like They're like a cheap convenience kind of children's food.
So
like
probably ultra processed, but
massively ultra processed. So honestly, we have very little ultra processed food in our house, and the children are, I would say, particularly healthily fed.
Yes.
And that's something I'm definitely proud of. But yeah, not exotic. They won't have ever had couscous or that kind of stuff.
Well, I think, Charlotte, if we head back to chicken, the chlorinated chicken, I think now would be a really good time to hear from Jane. And she is actually from Canada. She is brilliant. I mean, you first started following her a while ago, didn't you?
Well, I started following her because of her absolutely wonderful fashion sense.
It's unreal.
And outfits. I said, and she had, at the time, I think she just started Instagram. And I don't know how she came to be in front of me.
Yes.
And I went, I love her already. And I followed her. And Jane is skyrocketing. She is absolutely incredible. She's had a hard time in the past, depression, whatnot, low self-esteem. And she is just coming out of herself. She's discovering, Western cowboy, denim.
Yeah.
Honestly, the woman's incredible. Anyway, she's from farming. So her husband's a farmer. They're in Canada. And I think what she had to say was particularly interesting.
Hi, this is Jane from Ontario, Canada. In Canada, chlorine washed chicken is not as prevalent with poultry practices. However, it does go on. And in the poultry magazines in Canada and farming magazines, they do write for both sides of air chilled versus chlorine washed, yes or no. For me, as a consumer, when I go to the grocery store, I am looking for locally grown chicken, grass-fed naturally. I was not looking for the difference between air-chilled and chlorine-washed. I don't believe, including myself, we are as educated as need be on both sides of the subject, whether it should be or shouldn't be.
I think one of the most interesting things about Jane's perspective is her, I guess, conscious purchasing decisions. Now, sometimes I think as farmers, we think that either consumers don't care or it's only British consumers who are concerned about, buying local, because I feel like it's rammed down our throats, to be quite
Are
blunt
we
with you.
only concerned with what we're told to be concerned about? Are there practices and chemicals used in UK farming that I have never heard of, so they don't enter my brain and I'm not bothered about them? And when I go to the shops, I don't look for... I don't go to the butchers and say, our local butchers, Lowhowgill butchers, Jenny, a friend of mine, she lives in the village. I don't go in and say, Jenny, what process have you used? What chemicals have you used for this beef here? It's not something that enters my head. I know we only aware of it because the media are telling us to be aware of it.
I think that's a really good point, added into the fact that we have an on-the-ground understanding of how we're producing the food which is coming off our farms as well. So we don't perhaps almost need to be as conscious because we trust the process already, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
I think I found a statistic which said that around 49 pesticides are used abroad that are not approved for use by British farmers.
And I'd seen that, and I'd followed it up with, although 48 pesticide traces were found in food being tested that was being imported from abroad. So yes, it's banned, but then we're importing it from elsewhere and it's still there.
Absolutely. And the consumer doesn't know. And I think this goes down to where the food ends up. So when we talk about, the cereal products, the wheat or oilseed rape, which is imported, it's all tipped in the same heap.
That's the thing. So again, the level playing field is not there.
Before we move on to women in agriculture, I actually want to play another voice note. It's a topic which has definitely, I guess, caught people's attention. And we're going to be hearing from Matt, who is himself a poultry farmer.
UK poultry farmer, and wanting to share my views on chlorinated chicken with you briefly. Obviously I'm against chlorinated chicken, not because we shouldn't have chemically washed food. I don't believe in that either, but it's more the principle as to behind why it's chemically washed in chlorine. It's washed to cover up salmonella. US farms have higher cases of salmonella on them than the UK farms, and the reason behind that is UK has stringent legislation and biosecurity. By biosecurity, I mean keeping the flock safe from both diseases, salmonellas, avian influenza is a big one that's talked about with biosecurity. And to keep salmonella out on a UK farm, we'll change our footwear numerous times. We'll use disinfectant dips. We'll disinfect every single vehicle coming onto the farm. We wash between batches. We disinfect between batches. We don't cross-contaminate between farms. A lot of units are shower in, shower out to keep everything on that unit. And then in order to test for the salmonella, we're testing every 3 weeks. Samples sent away to the laboratories. We test the sheds before the birds arrive. We test the vehicles as they are leaving for salmonella, and it's just constantly tested, and all this is traceable. Now, can we trust that traceability across the United States? I'm hesitant. And should our consumer be put at risk to imported chlorinated chicken? Now, they might not buy it off the shelves of well-known supermarkets. However, when you go out for tea in the wholesale market, a lot of chicken that's bought in restaurants, you tend not to ask where it's come from, and you don't tend to look for the red tractor. So, yeah, if there was an outbreak of salmonella because of imported poultry, it's a UK farmer that would be impacted most, because people might be put off buying chicken altogether. So we'd lose the sales to the customer there. We know that red tractor assured chicken in this country is safe and it's traceable. You can pick a chicken off the shelf in Tesco and you can see the whole chain back, and you know which farms it's been on. Is there any issues? So that's a few of my views on salmonella and chlorinated chicken there. A whole other picture would be antibiotic usage, and the United States, I think, uses roughly twice as many antibiotics in poultry than we do over here. So that's a whole new argument. We'll leave that one for another day.
We had a debrief, not a debrief. What's a pre-brief?
A pre-brief.
We had a pre-brief.
We talked before we started recording.
Basically, we drank coffee and talked right at the kitchen table and ate croissants. So that was my point, wasn't it? That you all of the comments that came back on Instagram were from consumers that would be going into a shop and looking on the shelves for this labelling.
They were asking for clear labelling. I hope it's really bright and
You're
really
not going
obvious.
to see it. You are not going to see it. It's going to be fed to your grandma in hospital, your children in schools, nursing homes, Indian takeaways, not any takeaway, any kind of mass catering, hospitality. They are the ones that buy the cheap chicken, from abroad, and obviously in bulk as it's cheaper. And they are the ones that you do not necessarily ask to see sources. And that's where you're just going to be fed it. You are just going to be not force fed as such, but it's just going to be given to you.
I'm going to go off on not a tangent as such, but what about consumers who can't afford to choose? Because, you know, we see it with meat already in supermarkets where we have home produced and imported. Imported is cheaper, despite you know, all the costs of importing it, bringing it across, etc. Some consumers can't afford to choose.
So I had a really interesting voice note, and I know this, I'm going to have to find it, so bear with. And it was from a guy on Instagram that I speak to. And his views are somewhat, I'm going to say, they can be antagonistic to my mind. But do you know what? 9 times out of 10, he's bloody right, which is infuriating. So his view was, and I don't know whether I'll be able to find it, why are we stopping people getting cheaper food?
Shopping farm foods, who shop in Iceland, who shop at a price point, who are broke, you know, they need to be fed. They need to feed themselves. They're not going to pop into their farm shop and buy organic and buy regenerative. They don't care. Pardon me. As long as it tastes okay, that's what they're concerned about, the price point. So until we can offer a viable alternative for people that fits all these boxes we want to do about being wonderful food but is affordable, it's just not going to work. And it's very easy to say, well, you should spend more on your food. When you go to Waitrose, where you get your chai latte and do your yoga and buy your focaccia or whatever. But, you know, I've worked with some of the poorest communities in the country and I've seen some awful stuff. And a lot of these people, the money's not there to go and buy free range, to go and buy organic, to go and buy this, you know, and they need to eat too. They've got a right to eat, you know?
Because there is an absolute crisis in this country. People can't afford to eat. We do not know we are born. I'm talking about having pigs in the freezer and butchering lambs. There's people who are living off waffles because that's all they can afford. Who are we to say those people can't have cheaper chicken? Because if it's a choice between eating cheaper chicken or nothing at all,
Or no protein in their diet.
but that's the point. So who the hell are we to say that they can't? Like, it's such a first world pretentious farmer problem to have.
Yes.
To talk about this even.
We're coming from, yes, we sometimes don't have a lot of cash floating around, but most farmers eat pretty well. We're not usually concerned about the sourcing of our food or the traceability of it because we've grown a lamb, we've got it butchered and we've put it back in our own freezer.
I mean, I have never been starving. Never been starving. Don't get me wrong, I've been skint. I am skint. But we're ploughing it into a dairy shed. It is a world away from people with, I'm going to say, and I don't mean this in any way negatively towards us and me personally, real problems. They're not real problems. I can afford to eat. And if I have no money and I couldn't afford to eat, I could ring my mum and dad. I could ring Roy's dad. I could ring Kyle, Roy's brother.
Yeah.
I have it, my brother Cameron. I could ring numerous people and they would sort me out within an instance. I could ring you. You know, you've got a support network around you that would lift you up and make sure that you weren't in this position. Some people have nothing and they have no one, and it's a real worry.
And we're sitting in, sometimes, an ivory tower just thinking, do better. Sometimes people cannot afford to choose.
How do you even carry on from that conversation?
Well, I think that is probably a good time to wrap up this part of the episode. I think we've got probably
that
more
is an
to
episode.
say. It could be a whole episode in itself.
I think it is.
I suspect as these trade deals develop, you know, as I said at the start, we don't know all the details. This perhaps will be something that we revisit and talk perhaps a bit more in depth about the impacts on British farmers and subsequently British consumers. What does it mean when you are going out to eat or going to the supermarket? But I think we'd like to get into women in agriculture. We've got a couple of things to mention just before that. Charlotte, we're going to an event.
We are going to our first ever event. I'm not sure the trailer will be wrapped in time, which I'm absolutely mortified about, but I'm hoping it will be, and it's going to be very impressive. On Wednesday, the 4th of June, will be at North Sheep.
That's right. It's up in Penrith, so
it's just round the corner
not far
from me.
From here.
Absolutely brilliant. And we will be doing a few reels and whatnot beforehand to show you the process of getting a trailer there.
We're going to do a recce. We're going to go and suss it out, meet the host family.
Yeah.
And it should be really, really exciting. All supported by the National Sheep Association as well. So we're grateful for them giving us the chance to have a pitch, I guess, and go to a show.
And Cammy will be there as well, so we'll be able to absolutely
We'll
pick his
harass
brains
him.
about podcasting. Yeah, I'm totally harassing. Tell him to bring some merch. Merch.
If you're enjoying our episodes, we would love you to share them with your friends and leave a review as well. That's very helpful.
So they are on, what are they on? Because I'm new to this. Spotify.
Yeah.
I've downloaded something called Spotify. Well, actually, it's quite interesting. So I asked for recommendations on Spotify, and Amy Wilkinson sent me one on the history of beards. So I am invested. I'm an episode and a half deep into The Rest is History, which is new to me.
Yes.
Those voices, I don't know who they are. I don't know these men, but they are just.
You're hooked.
I am hooked. Their voices are creamy. They're nice. They sound pretty well to do. I mean, some of the historical characters that were mentioned in these episodes, one of them lived next door to one as a child. So I'm thinking they're at central London. I'm quite enjoying it. But yeah, Spotify, Apple Podcasts as well. It's on Apple Podcasts.
We are releasing the video on YouTube as well. So
Yes, the YouTube video is done particularly well.
Yes.
So I'll be doing, that's all the work, to be honest.
Yeah.
The actual podcast putting out, it's quite easy with I won't lie, the editing of the videos
visuals.
taking some doing.
Yeah.
But we'll get there, we'll get used to it.
We'll get there. So, women in agriculture. Last week, we attended the National Women in Agriculture Awards. We were actually both nominated for the Influencer of the Year category. We definitely have opinions on the word influencer. To be honest, negative connotations with it. But I feel like we keep saying this. That is for another episode, because if we talk about influencers, we won't talk about women in agriculture. So, send us your thoughts on influencers, though. We'll include those
yes,
in
we'll do another
episode.
episode on them when we get enough. I have very strong opinions on the
You, strong opinions, Charlotte.
I have very
Who'd have
strong
thought
opinions.
it?
Well, I don't know. I just feel like sorry, I'm doing it, aren't I? I just feel like it takes away from people that are actually working.
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
I'm not an influencer. I'm a bloody farmer. We were outside this morning farming. I can hear the bobcat running now, and I feel guilty that I'm not on the farm. And that's the point, I think, is why it annoys me. I don't want to be called an influencer.
You're
So it's
first
me
and
sat in
foremost
front
a farmer.
of Influencer of the Year.
Yeah.
And you know what's really bad is when she won. I'll put the video in. She rolled her eyes.
I was like, oh my God, I'm going to have to go up on the stage now and accept this award. Yeah, I actually did a kind of a video on it. We were asked to do an acceptance video, as it were. And I put in that, as Charlotte said, this isn't about kind of personal highlights and achievements for me as well, what other people call an influencer. It's about all those hard-working farmers who I guess we hope to represent. The voice that we have been lucky enough to build on social media is hopefully helping advocate for all farmers out there, young farmers, female farmers, male farmers, whatever farmers. We're just hoping that we're shining a light on the industry, and it's perhaps not just about the women. Talking about women in agriculture, and I do think it's kind of a movement. Is that the right word? It's kind of...
Hold on. We're skipping the fact that you won Influencer of the Year. I know you want to skip that, but can we talk about it?
I want to skip it.
So the awards were run by... it wasn't Farmers Week. It's Mark Allen Group, isn't it? Which I think owns Farmers Weekly.
Yeah.
They run the Farmers Weekly Awards, obviously, and they have not only Farmers Weekly, but a plethora of publications,
so many
Nursing Monthly, and
dentists.
Yeah, honestly, all sorts of random magazines. If you go on the website, you can see them. And obviously, these companies are commercial, and their aim is to make money.
Yes,
which we're always very aware of, especially with me personally, with Farmers Weekly. And I don't know whether I was going to not accept the invitation to the awards. I don't know. I don't know if I agree with them in general.
I actually think this is quite a good time to bring in a comment we had on Instagram from Billy Bob's Farm. And I'll read this word for word. Women are often pitched against each other in competitions and not always in a healthy way. I love that women are helping to raise other women up, but I don't want to win against another woman. I'd prefer to win something in an open category against anyone in a specific field to be recognised as the best in that area, regardless of gender. Now, I actually think that's pretty much hit the nail on the head in that, is it only half an award, if that makes sense? Have I been exposed to the full competition to win that?
Yeah, I completely agree. But then if you look at it from a sporting perspective, you do have women's only sporting events. And I don't think, an Olympic female runner is going to say it's half a 100-meter gold.
I'm not an 100-meter runner, Charlotte, I can tell you that.
A 100-meter rower, shall we say. Rebecca's going to take me rowing, FYI.
Oh my gosh, should we actually do it?
No, I think I'm scared of water.
Okay, maybe it's not the... Charlotte's mentioning this.
No, I can't. No, I'm not. I'm pathetic. When we were younger, my mum and dad used to take us wakeboarding and skiing and stuff. On Windermere, and my mum and dad were very, very, they were into the water sports, as was my brother, still is, and they used to just like throw us in the middle of Windermere.
Be like, swim,
literally, and we were superb swimmers, and then my mum and dad did diving and things, and they were really into it. Anyway, it just always just never sat right with me that you couldn't see what was underneath you.
I've never fallen in, touch wood.
Right, okay, you can take me then if you're touching wood, if you're not falling.
Charlotte and I were talking about this because I used to row when I was at university. And so we were actually talking about the boat. Right, let's not get into that because we'll be here for another.
Let's talk
3
about
hours.
rowing in another episode. Yeah. We keep saying this. So Billy Bob's Fab. Yeah, my thing was, is it half a gold because you're only competing against women?
But then that's down to physicalities, isn't it? Now, farming is a very physical industry to some extent, but influencer of the year, I don't need to be physically strong.
Do you feel that women are underrepresented in farming?
This is a really, really good point. And we've had this conversation before. I think in livestock sectors, perhaps up north, is there something geographical? I haven't felt that underrepresented. The farm at home was handed down my mum's side. So there's, I have a twin sister and my mum and my dad both work on the farm. So we've always been very kind of female central when it comes to farming.
Your dad doesn't stand a chance.
Yeah. Can't get a word in edgeways.
Nick.
But am I naive to think that my experience is fairly normal? You get the classic, oh, are you the one who's unloading that? Or, oh, you can't do that. Or, oh, but did well for a girl. But I thought, well, does it matter?
It's a reflection on them, not you.
Yeah, I know that I'm good at I'm good at most parts of my job. But I'm good at my job. I've got learning to do, but that's not because I'm female or it wouldn't be because I was male. It's because we've all still got to learn.
Yeah, I think I struggle with the female in farming thing. I have never had an issue with being a woman in farming that wasn't self-inflicted. So I think, for instance, silage, I can reverse a trailer better than anyone. And sometimes I think I'm better than Roy. But I won't drive a silage trailer because I think the pressure that I give myself, thinking that people are watching, judging, stops me doing that. And now I have a different take on it, is that I am that busy bloody videoing silage to put on YouTube that
your time's better spent.
Well, it's not more lucrative sitting with a camera, isn't it?
Did you see that video? And you will know her name, and forgive me. Irish dairy farmer, blonde hair, who you love.
Legendary Holsteins.
Yes.
Her name's Vicky.
Vicky. Did you see a fairly recent video?
And she cried.
Yes.
I cried. I know exactly what you mean. So Vicky, absolutely comedy gold. I have never seen a woman lip sync a sound like it in my life. Honestly, she is superb. Not from farming, rocking dairy farming. She really is. She's absolutely wonderful. I enjoy watching her so much. Anyway, she'd gone up an embankment, from what I can gather from the video, with, was it the rowing up machine or a tether?
I don't know whether she was mowing. I think she was rowing up, was she?
It was something. I think it looked like it. It did look like a tether rowing up, something like that. And she'd gone up an embankment that she had never dared go up before. Anyway, she was in floods of tears, saying how proud of herself she was. And I think I was proud of her.
Yes,
you
felt it.
I really did feel it, because I remember being the girl to say, I was fully loaded with bales, and I used to get Roy to drive anything big back, and I'd drive something small.
The loader back or whatever.
We're in a ring fence here, and there's very few fields that we have to go on to get to on a road.
Yeah.
But this one field, it's called Bolton Road Ends, and he said, I'll come back and I'll cross the main road, the A66. I'll cross it for you, and then you can drive home. And I'm like, right, that's fine. Anyway, he left me. He literally just carried on. Well, bloody hell. I had literally had a breakdown. I won't lie. I was very girly. And I didn't know what to do. So I rang. And I'm like, you come back here and do, no. And he was like, no, I'm gone. And he literally just left me. I was petrified. I will not lie.
You were going to say I was shitting
Well,
it.
the point was, I was going to say that, yeah. The point was, I was facing in one direction on at the side of the main road, pulled onto the grass verge.
Yeah.
I had to turn round across 2 lanes of traffic.
Yes, yeah.
And this is the A66,
Yeah.
if any of you know the country. You know, it's absolutely ridiculously busy. Turn round in the middle of the road, fully loaded with bales, like not like black wrap, silage bales, so they were fairly heavy. And then go on the other verge on the other side of the road. I don't know if this is illegal. Maybe I shouldn't say it. And then turn off and carry on driving home. So anyway, I did it, and that's fine. And honestly, I felt such a sense of accomplishment actually doing it. And now it's a second thought. But I remember being that terrified to do it.
Do you think, though, that is because it's something that your mind and body is telling you there's risk to this?
Yes.
Or I'm a bit scared.
No, it wasn't because I was a girl.
It's not because you're female. I think the difference is...
Oh no, my boob got in the way of me turning the steering wheel. Well.
I think the difference is, though, if you were a boy, a young lad, say, you would have been fairly young at the time. If you were a young lad, you wouldn't have shown that you were scared because it's frowned upon for a boy to not be that kind of, I'll just crack on with it.
Or do they not have internal risk assessment like we do? But no, it was not because I was female. It was because I'd never done it. It was circumstantial. And, tractors are not designed for men as such. Now, one bit I will say I think the women in agriculture thing gets taken away in such an extreme fashion that the bits that we really do need to talk about get lost. So, for instance, Amy Wilkinson once said about telehandlers, the joysticks on telehandlers that I can't remember, I'll have to find out which one it was.
She tries and tests loads of them, doesn't she?
They're too big for a hand because she has got tiny little hands.
Yes, she does.
But surely there's some men with little hands.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I think this is it. Like, where do we draw the line? Is that the right? But, at what stage do we get wrapped up in the kind of the materialistic elements of women in agriculture and then actually think, well, hold on, there's some down on the ground challenges which are very much present?
I think having children is a massive one, and it debilitates you in every sense. Honestly, the trauma is real. But I think that's one that is often overlooked.
Yeah.
Physical wise, the fact that you're trailing this child around with you. Imagine if you haven't had children, imagine sticking the most sickly lamb in a papoose on your chest and taking it around farming with you and trying not to bash its head on things. And it's generally quite hard work, all whilst adhering to health and safety legislation, not taking them on tractors, not leaving them in prams on the yard because you might run them over, and then not being able to afford childcare, then being too far away from the house to leave them in the house and not leaving them in the house, and the guilt, I think that is an episode in itself.
Absolutely.
I really do. But for the women in agriculture, as in the movement, I somehow sit on the edge of it. I'm very on the fence as to whether or not it's needed, and caterwauling about it, I think, probably does more damage than good.
I don't want to alienate the men out there, of which there are many, who support women. Like, I haven't really been exposed to the misogyny, the prejudice, which some people say is rife. Actually, for them, perhaps it is, and I'm fully supportive of them. I'd call something out if I saw it. But
Do you think there's a north-south divide? And it sounds a really silly question.
Well, is it kind of more of an arable versus livestock kind of situation?
Completely agree. Now, I know hundreds of women up here, reps, feed companies, seamen, half the people that come on our farm to work are female. Rachel AIs the cows. Lizzie scores the cows. Tracy was the feed rep. We've now got another feed rep called Grace. They're all women. So where's the underrepresentation in farming here? And that's before the fact that all of the farms round here that I can think of have women working on them.
Yes.
And in fact, I think it was Metcalfe Farms. He said he prefers women milking. Now, if that was a man and he said it the other way around and said, oh no, I prefer men milking, he'd be bloody slated.
Yes. Yeah.
Which leads us nicely into a voice note from Matt Blair.
Yes, absolutely. Well, let's hear from Matt.
I think I find this a little bit hard to talk about because whatever you say as a man in this situation to have an opinion, you get battered for it. And I think that's, I guess, probably a point, is that you get battered for it.
I'm going to leave that there. Now, Matt goes on to fully support women. His wife is a vet. He is an absolute staunch, women. Honestly, he's a wonderful person. He really is
A
great.
supporter of women.
Yes,
Farmers,
and I'm not
farming.
leaving that there. I don't want anyone to think that he went on to say anything negative because he didn't. I want to just use this as a point because I think we'll come on in a future. We've listened to the voice note and we think it's such a good point that it deserves its own time.
Yes, absolutely.
Definitely. But in response to his voice note, I completely agree.
Yeah. Men are afraid to say anything for fear of being called out.
But I think if you look at women in farming, we are a minority. And now I am not comparing being a woman to being of any ethnic minority. Don't get me wrong on that, but I'm just drawing the comparison between are we as a non-ethnic minority background person? Is that right?
I think that's fine.
Is that all right?
Yes.
Is that all right? I'm not going to get cancelled, am I?
No, I don't think so.
But that's the point.
Yes.
Am I positioned to speak on these matters?
Yep. Well, actually, I think again,
Despite being an ally of anything like that, am I in a position to speak on them? And that is what I feel that Matt's point is.
Yes.
That he is a man, so can he talk about it?
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. How will he be viewed for having
Any
an
opinion?
Yeah.
But is that the point? Does that happen with absolutely everything? And that's a bit of is that a sad situation that we've got ourselves into in the world?
Yeah. Well, it is. The beauty of the world of people, of networks, of communication is that we don't all have the same opinion. And that creates this patchwork of life, of learning, of people who change perspectives because they've spoken to somebody who was different to them. And once we put all ourselves into the same box of we all have to think exactly the same and we couldn't possibly offend anybody, what a boring world to live in. So whilst we're hearing from people outside of the studio, we do have a couple more voice notes to play, which I think we really want to include in the episode, to be honest. So let's hear from Kelly.
So the Women in Ag movement is a weird one for me because I've worked with so many amazing women, but they're amazing because they're amazing, not amazing for a woman. And I worry that the impression that the Women in Ag conversation has is that this person is really good for a woman, but not on the same level as a man. I've never had a problem being a woman in agriculture. I've always given as good as I've got and will admit where I have weaknesses, but also recognise where I have strengths. And I think as long as we go down that route rather than we're all equal and we can all do the same things, because I'll be honest, I don't want to empty the slurry lagoon. There are things that I don't want to do or I can't do. If you want to do that as a woman, fine, crack on. But for me, I don't. So my strengths are better placed doing the paperwork, doing those traditional roles. But if I need to milk, if I need to feed calves or whatever it is, push cows out, I don't drive the scraper tractor because my leg isn't strong enough for the brake and I will crash it.
That's really interesting because I agree with the majority of it, but the scraper tractor bit, Kelly, what tractor have you got on your farm? I'm going to ring her. What tractor have you got that you can't push the brake in? I mean, there's something, I think we might need to have a little word with a mechanic about that. I've never met a scraper tractor I can't drive. But that's the thing. I think you play to your strengths. And if you are used to doing that, then fair enough.
Yeah.
I'm used to scraping cows. I'm used to driving tractors. So I've never come across, apart from a Fendt, I once got into move of somebody's and I didn't actually know how to turn it on. I've never met a scraper tractor I can't boss.
I think it is interesting though about not feeling like you need to prove a point, but it's almost setting yourself in an environment, a workplace environment, where there's respect for anybody anyway. You know, regardless of gender, if there's respect of strengths and weaknesses, skill sets, training, ability, then that feeling should never happen.
I do tend to think that the media, and I'm going to narrow that down with the more southern media, has issues.
Read into that what you will.
Farmers Weekly, that's exactly what I mean. They press the issue more than the northern media, being Farmers Guardian. I think Farmers Guardian, and that's what led me to say, is there a north-south divide? And that is a very good question. Do you think down south there are as many female reps? Yeah, I do wonder whether there is a north-south divide, and we would love to hear from people, because all of the people we're drawing from at the minute are friends of ours, local people, and people that we follow on social media. But actually, to be honest, apart from Jane in Canada, the majority of the people I think we've spoken to have been very northern.
Yes, yeah.
I would like to hear from some southern people.
Yeah.
Is it different? Yeah, what's the crack down there? Are we just being woefully naive to this? And is there actually an issue?
Let's hear from Alison.
She's also northern.
We're self-fulfilling.
I know, I can actually feel that. Alison works for National Milk Recording, NMR. They do our milk recording, and that's also an all-female team. So that's what I mean. I struggle, and when I'm so... It maybe looks like to the people who write these articles in Farmers Weekly, and they post them on Twitter, and I go mad and say, "Don't be so stupid." This is why I'm doing that. Are you
naive? Yeah.
Am I being naive? I'm asking the question. Is there, some work I can do on myself to realise that I just don't know what's going on below Birmingham, for instance?
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? But where I'm sitting on a farm, surrounded by female farmers, and people who've never been anything other than helpful, I struggle to see the massive, big level the field campaign that's needed.
Yeah.
Hi, Charlotte. Great podcast. I'm looking forward to hearing more from you both. We were on about women in agriculture and should it be celebrated and have their own society. And personally, I'm not against it, but it's something that I think we have a lot of industries that traditionally were a male role model, and then the war came and we had a lot of females going into different industries to do the jobs while the males were at war. And nowadays we see, on social media, wagon drivers, so many female wagon drivers now. Now, that was an industry that was once perceived as a male industry, but now we have females. Do they have their women in transport, or I don't know. So for me, I don't feel there is a need, because I personally, in the industry, I'm lucky to get feedback and push forward in the right direction from my manager. But I appreciate out there on the farm, it's totally different. That you do need that support to keep morale up, because agriculture is a tough industry. But also there are other industries out there that are exactly the same in a tough industry, but I don't know what they're doing out in those industries.
I completely agree.
It's interesting.
You would think, honestly, we'd cherry pick these people. We have not. This is the and people and people like Farmers Weekly. I'm gonna say they'll write these articles about level the field, and I'll say, don't be so bloody stupid. Just be, work hard, play hard. There is no glass ceiling. Just smash it. It doesn't matter. Just do what you want. You're a woman. It doesn't. No one cares anymore. And yet these are the people I'm surrounded with.
Yes. Are we naive? We want to know. Are we living in a dream world?
Do we know any southern farmers we can get in touch with very quickly to get a voice note from them to see what they think? I don't know any.
No, not.
Or is it the case that down south there is no female?
Well, let us know. because we are definitely going to touch on women in agriculture, actually focusing on Matt Blair's remainder of his voice note. We will be
Yes.
doing that at another point. So there will be an opportunity if you have strong thoughts, which actually, particularly if you have strong thoughts in opposition to what we've kind of talked about and the narrative that we feel happens, please do let us know. But I think that's a good time to draw the episode to a close.
There'll be something else I want to add.
Charlotte
put it
will
in
be
another
recording herself at home being like, I just need to add this bit in.
Yeah, no, I'm not going to do that again. It was rubbish.
Well, if you've enjoyed the episode, we would love to hear from you. Please do get in contact on social media and keep up to date. As we mentioned, this episode will be going out on YouTube as well, and you can catch us in person at North Sheep on Wednesday the 4th of June.
Thank you very much for listening and watching if you're watching. And as I say in every YouTube video, love you long time, and I'll see you next time.